Faces of the Old Ones. 2 mana 0/2. Round start, if you behold an 8+ cost card, get an extra mana gem this round. And keep in mind, behold... Oh god, I've got to move my camera again. Behold is bonus if you have a type of card in play... Huh? What's the type? Okay, so if you have it in play or in hand. So if you have an 8+ cost card in play or in hand, gain an empty mana gem this round. So... But it's just this round. Oh, wow, that's interesting. So it's a ramp. It's basically... But it's not a permanent ramp. So at the start of every round, if you have an 8+ cost card in your hand, if you open your hand with like a Tryndamere and this, you get an extra mana gem that round. It's a full mana gem, but it's only for that round. So it's like ramp, except it only lasts for that round. It's interesting. Let's look at all the cards before we evaluate them. Troll Scavenger. Okay, so there's no troll keyword. There's no troll keyword. When I'm summoned, if you behold an 8+ cost card, grant me +3/+0. I like this behold keyword, actually. Behold is a really cool keyword. There's a lot they can do with this in other archetypes. Okay. So basically, it has a chance to be a 2/4/3. This is like an absolutely awful card, I think. I don't really know how... trolls are really meant to play, but at 2 mana 4/3, we've seen a lot of like 2 mana 4/3s before, and the stat line is usually quite awkward. It's also like only an on summon effect and doesn't apply retroactively. The idea of like a 4/3 without a keyword in the early game usually is kind of not as great as it might seem. And the way this archetype works, like, you want to run expensive ramp tools, right? But Troll Scavenger is trying to be like a tempo card, so it really doesn't make too much sense. It seems kind of like a troll addition to the deck. Do you get it? Do you get the joke? Troll Ravager, 4 mana 3/5. When I'm summoned, if you behold an 8+ cost card, grant me regen. So, this one could be really, really obnoxious. This is one that just makes sense with like what this archetype is trying to do, right? Because we have to be thinking to ourselves, okay, what kind of deck is this? And it's a deck it's like a ramp deck, right? You want to kind of stay alive. You want to make sure that you have an 8+ cost card in your hand. And because these cards gain value on this behold trigger, you are going to want to have a deck that has a lot of 8+ cost cards, right? So this you could see this as like, there's a lot of different decks you could run with this. It could be like Tryndamere stuff, but you want to like slow the game down in a mid-range fashion. And this card, like the last card we were looking at, like this aggressive 2-drop, doesn't really make sense for that. This one makes perfect sense. This idea of like a 4 mana 3/5 regen. And another thing we have to ask ourselves is, okay, let's assume this regen whiffs. How good is a 4 mana 3/5? Because we have never, in this game, we've never seen a 4 mana 3/5 yet. And it might actually be better than we think. Like, it's a unique stat line. It will come down to the meta a little bit, but Shen? Is Shen a 4 mana 3/5? Oh, wait. I don't know. Oh, yeah, they buffed his... Okay, that's a good point. Dude, I don't know. Nobody's played Shen since it got buffed. I like the way you guys think. Uzgar the Ancient. Okay, it's got Challenger and Regen. These are really awkward keywords that don't have the ability to finish games and really exist for like early and mid-game dominance. This card's weird. This card is like, wow, mega... It's like, for an 8 mana card, you really want stuff that's going to be like closing the game out. Stuff like Overwhelm, stuff like Elusive, stuff like... Even Fearsome does a decent job. Like, Regen is really almost never what you want this late into the game. And Challenger is alright, but usually these are the turns where Challenger is kind of falling off. So this card is weird. This looks like a... I mean, there's a card that this is reminding of. There's a card that this is reminding me of, and not in a good way. Can anyone guess what card this is reminding me of? It's gonna remind some of you guys of the same card. Savage Reckoner? Yes, it's Savage Reckoner. Do you guys know why I asked you? It's not because I'm trying to like have some streamer chat interaction. It's because I literally couldn't remember the card name, and I needed you guys to offer me the card name. Yes, it's reminding me of Savage Reckoner. Correct. That's not a good thing. Troll Chant. Whew. Okay, so far, not amazing. Troll Chant. Give an ally 0/2 to give an enemy 2/0. Huh? Whoa. Whoa, that's a cheap trick. Ooh. So you gain health and they lose attack. Wait, huh. That seems pretty good. It's a 4 health swing. So it's like a mini Fury of the North, right? It's like 2 elixirs for 1 card. Yeah, like, okay, so when you look at it, Elixir of Iron is 1 mana for 2 stats. Fury of the North is 4 mana for 8 stats. And this is 2 mana for 4 stats, right? It's like literally on the exact beat curve, the linear curve of 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So it's like, when you look at it in that framework, this could be balanced. We're actually gonna have to think about this one a lot. We're gonna have to think about this one a lot. You can switch it to, yeah, you can switch it up across 2 things. It can work defensively. Like, if you're just trying to stay alive, you can literally just use it as +2 health. Wow, this one looks good. This one looks good. Oh, man. This looks really, really, really good. This looks like a better Elixir of Iron. I mean, it's hard to say better exactly, but man. Man, this looks good. This looks like a Lux. I wanna rate that a Lux. I have to think about it a bit more, but that one looks great. Call of the Wild. Ooh, a meme card, presumably. For each 4 cards in your deck, for the top 4 cards in your deck, draw each Yeti, Poro, and Elnuk. Then shuffle the rest of your deck. So it draws every Yeti, Poro, and Elnuk in the top 4 cards of your deck. And at a 3 mana card, for it to be good, it needs to be effectively a draw 2. Wow. So, the thing to understand about this deck is it's bad with Poros and Elnuks. And it looks like a meme card if you're looking at it with Poros and Elnuks. But let's just look at it with Yetis, guys. Seriously. This is closer to being good than it looks. We have to think about, like, how it actually hits the Yeti deck. Like, okay, so what do you have? You have Avaroz and Trapper. You have Avaroz and Trapper. You've got, I mean, you're not going to play, like, you're not going to play the 3 mana Yeti card, right? It's just Trapper for now. I think that if they add a couple of decent Yeti cards, this card could actually be kind of crazy. I don't think we're at that point yet. It does look like it does look like it's missing pieces right now. It really is. But like, I think this card is like a bit scarier than it looks. If they add like 1 or 2 decent Yetis, this card could get good fast. But for now, it is probably bad. But I think a lot of people are underrating this card's potential. Like, it would not take many additions to the game for this card to be good, right? Like, really. And Nunu, you guys are saying Nunu might have Yeti synergy. Trundle might have, like, some kind of Yeti tie-in. I think he's a troll, and I think that's kind of, like, racist, but, you know, I mean, who am I to judge? Whatever. But, yeah, no, this is kind of the definition of a Heimer emote. So, overall, I will say that this card, I can't think of a way to use this for value yet. The biggest thing is, like, I do want to be very, very clear. A really important way of evaluating cards is that for cards to be good, they need to attach to good cards, right? So, like, we can look at Call of the Wild, and we can say, oh, Call of the Wild could make, what's the card called? Let's play a game, chat. Guess the card I'm thinking of. It's a 3 mana spell. See if you can guess it. 3 mana spell that puts a Yeti in. Tall Tale! Exactly. You were right, guys. Tall Tale is the card I was thinking of. Yes, that's what it was called. Thank you. Tall Tales. You're not going to play that card. And this is going to be a trap a lot of people fall into, which is like the idea of like sort of like running bad cards to merit, to make other bad cards make sense, right? It's like 2 bad cards making each other make sense is a very, very common like bait in deck building in every card game. And in reality, you want a good card to make a bad card make sense, right? So this card wants to be attaching to cards like Avaroz and Trappers. And even like, we're almost at the point where we can be running like Yeti Yearling as well. Like, you guys might be surprised. We are almost at that point We need a couple more decent Yetis, and maybe it would be nice if we had some Poros that made sense, just to get a bit of additional value off of this. But this is like, I will say, I don't expect this card to be good in the next patch unless they do something weird and crazy. But I think there's gonna come a time where this card is like decent. It's gonna be a while from now, maybe like a year and a half. I don't know. Like there will come a time where this card becomes like an actual card all of a sudden, and it'll come out of nowhere and it'll surprise people. Because even like the Overwhelm Yeti is a better card than people give it credit for. It doesn't work super well with this one, but a better card than people give it credit for. And this card can attach to other synergies too. Like, I don't expect Elnux to really be competitive long term, but there could be a lot of like little Poros. You wouldn't run this in like a full synergy deck. You wouldn't run this in like a Yeti Poro deck. But if there's even like a couple of Poros that are decent standalone value, they just add a little bit of additional value to this. Okay, so let's go over the ratings real quick. Overall, it's really hard to say. This is one that I can tell you we're gonna have to revisit when they show Trundle tomorrow, because these cards look bad. I'm gonna be honest, these cards look really bad. Faces of the Old One looks pretty bad at my first impressions. Troll Scavenger looks really bad. Troll Ravager looks alright. Uzgar the Ancient looks really bad, and Troll Chant looks really, really good. And Call of the Wild looks like a Heimerdinger card. I don't expect it to be good this patch, but maybe in a future patch with more tools it could be good. So the thing is, though, that we do know that they are going to be releasing synergy for this. They're going to be showing something tomorrow that's going to tie this all together. So I'll give you my ratings for now, but I can tell you right now, we will have to revisit these ratings tomorrow, because I'm going to be rating these now given what we've seen so far, and they're going to be bad ratings because we haven't seen the synergy card yet, and that's the only thing I can do. I know some people are like, well, Swim, if you haven't seen all the cards, why even rate them? But that's kind of part of the fun of these next 2 weeks, right? Like, I don't want to wait until we've seen all the cards to rate them. I would get more accurate ratings, but I mean, as long as I adjust them as I go, it's totally fine, right? So just keep that in mind. If you're watching the YouTube, I'll be updating like the comments and the scoring of each card as we get like new sets. Okay. But the Behold keyword is really interesting. I'd love to see this applied to different things other than like 8+ cost things. And I think it's perfect for Freljord as well. I think it makes a shit ton of sense. I don't know if this is going to be like a Freljord exclusive keyword or a Freljord main keyword, but it's also going to look really well and feel really well on some of Freljord's like synergy archetypes, like Behold's Yeti or Behold's Poro or something like this. I love this concept, and I'm glad they're adding it to the game. That's more of like a game design bit though than anything else. Faces of the Old One is kind of like the hardest one to evaluate, because it can basically get you into free ramping. It's sort of like a Weirding Stones, right? That's kind of like the idea. It's just like you keep it on board and you get a Weirding Stones. And it's a cheap Weirding Stones, but it only works if you have an 8+ cost card in hand, which is a little bit awkward. This is the one that I think probably has the most potential, for sure, out of all of them. Feels like a worse Weirding Stone. Wow, Marcus, why do you say that? Interesting. Because it looks at least better than Weirding Stones to me, but I guess the lack of health is kind of awkward, right? It's not great. I would probably call this a Vlad emote. Again, these ones are going to be hard. It's really hard doing the ones on every other day, because especially when they're like, it's obvious these cards aren't standalone value, right? The ones we had like 2 days ago, they were a bit more standalone value. This is honestly, I think I would say, okay, for now, this is fine emote, not a Vlad, but I'm expecting it to come up a little bit. It's a this is fine. This is fine emote. It's not great, but I think it does have like, it does have a little bit of potential. And they're gonna add some synergy to this tomorrow, and then we're gonna have to give it, we're gonna have to reapply our actual evaluation at that point. Then we've got Troll Scavenger. This one seems bad. This one actually seems like it just doesn't make sense with the archetype. Like everything about this 8+ cost archetype looks like it's completely independent on early aggression. And even if we wanted early aggression, I think the idea of a conditional 2-mana 4/3 isn't really good. You'll note we already have that in the game in the form of Patrol Wardens, I think it's called. The P&Z card, which is a harder condition, I guess, but also like really far from a good card. I think I've literally never seen Patrol Wardens being played once. Literally never. Literally not even joking. Like, and Troll Scavenger does not look good. I will say, like, I give potential to the other one just because it's a very unique concept, and there's a lot of reasons this archetype would want this effect. But out of every single thing we've seen here, Troll Scavenger seems to really not fit this at all. Like, really not fit this at all. So I would be pretty happy calling this one a sad Poro emote. If I can think of some weird way to use this, I might bump it up to a Heimerdinger. But right now, I can't even think of like any weird potential this card has. Troll Ravager. Ravenge? I think I add an N to that word for some reason. Ravager is interesting. Ravager is very interesting. Because it has a pretty unique and good stat line. And the ability to have regen on turn 4 with 5 is actually nuts. This is sad Poro 2. Okay, you guys are trolling. This card is actually decent to good. This card is like solid. I think this is a good card. Like, it's at least a Vlad, and I think this could be a swoon. I think I'm leaning Vlad, but it could be a swoon. Like, seriously, this is a card that's quite solid. Like, regen on turn 4 is, I think, scarier than we give it credit for. I think it's a lot scarier than we give it credit for. We haven't had, like, a regen stats on turn 4. Oh, Braum. Oh, yeah, I guess we have Braum. That's the second time with this card. Okay, so it's like a Braum Shen. So it's like a bad Braum. I mean, giving the regen to the thing that actually has the thing is pretty good, right? There's a 5 mana 4/5 that no one plays. Yeah, but the difference between 4 and 5 mana is really big, and the difference between 3 and 4 attack is pretty small. Pretty small. Okay. So I'm happy calling this a Vlad. I think that this is a pretty solid card. It's like, I think it's a perfect Vlad. It's a Braum with more short-term value and less long-term value. Yeah, exactly. And that's often what you want here. So I'll call this a Vlad emote for now. Again, we're going to be updating the ratings as we go. These are just the first impressions ratings. This one, Uzgar the Ancient, I'm very happy just calling this like a straight up. Is this a Darius? This one seems like even harder. This one seems, oh god. Okay. Jesus Christ. This card is straight poo-poo. Yeah. Tutatus is coming in saying the card is straight poo-poo. It's like, so what we have to ask ourselves is, in the deck builder, we suddenly have a niche for these like 8+ mana cards, right? So what are we going to add to this deck? What are we going to add to this deck to hit those 8+ mana cards? They don't have to be unit for Behold, right? It's just card. Yeah. An 8+ cost card. So, I mean, compare this to Tryndamere. Ooh, don't compare this to Tryndamere. Ooh, yikes. Oh, God. Oh, Jesus Christ. Even like She Who Wanders. Tryndamere spell as well. Yeah, Battle Fury is a really good point, by the way. Battle Fury is a pretty solid 8+ mana cost card that can work to trigger these Beholds. I think Battle Fury is low-key underrated. I think that Battle Fury is going to be really good in this deck. I'll talk a little bit more about why afterwards. Uzgar the Ancient, I'm giving a Darius emote too. It's just not what this deck wants. Troll Chant, I think, is a straight-up Lux emote. I think this card is crazy. I'll have to talk more about this card with, like, people I have on, and I might end up putting it down to a swoon, but god damn, this card looks good. Now, you know, the last time I was so excited about a burst speed spell was Whimsy, which we ended up coming down, like, literally 2 ranks on. But I can't, this is definitely not getting below a swoon. Like, even if we end up taking this from a Lux to a swoon, this card's very good. It has a lot of applications. A really important function of this card is A, the ability to have a chance to swing 2 combats. This is like insanely important. So let's talk. We haven't really seen anything like this before. This card is so good. Like, okay, you look at Brothers Bond. Brothers Bond has seen niche play in the past. We've seen some Brothers Bonds hit plays in aggro decks until they eventually got cut. The reason that they were good was because they had the ability to swing 2 combats from time to time, but the reason they got cut is because they're too dependent on having multiple units on the board at the same time. With Troll Chant, you have the ability to not only target your unit, but target the opponent's unit, which means you have the ability to swing 2 combats without having the the committal identity of Brothers Bond to have to target 2 different things on your board, which is really, really, really limited because you need to have a wide board for Brothers Bond to be able to be used. Troll Chant has the upside without the downside, which is absolutely crazy. It's 1 more mana on Elixir of Iron, which in most situations won't matter, and it has the ability to play defensive when you don't even really have control over the board, right? Like, we can imagine this if you are literally just trying to be anti-aggro, if you're literally just trying to survive early aggression, you can just -2 the opponent's attack, in which case you're using it sort of like a health potion, which isn't great, but even when you're not combat tricking this, it's good. This card is a ridiculous card, lucked emote for sure, absolutely insane. Jesus Christ, let's give Freljord some more fucking power combat tricks. Why the fuck not? Okay, Jesus! Call of the Wild! Heimerdinger emote for sure. Heimerdinger emote for sure. I think that, like I said, it's not going to be good right away. It's not going to be good right away, but I can really, really imagine this card making a lot of sense in the future. More so than it looks like a meme card. When you read Yeti, Poro, Elnak, oh, it's got like a meme picture. It vibes meme, right? The problem is that, like, I think that people are miscategorizing it because of that. Yeah, it's not going to be good right now, but the ability for this to work with Yetis in particular, just ignore Poros and Elnuks. Yetis in particular, Yeti has 3 like pretty good cards so far. One of them is nuts, of course, and we see it in every deck. And I don't love Call of the Wild, but I think there will come a time in the future where it actually sees, like, it starts seeing, like, people put it into decks, and that'll be cool. Probably not for like several expansions from now. But perfect Heimerdinger emote, like an experimental card that has potential for one day. Okay, and that's it. That's kind of my initial impressions of these cards. Now we're gonna go ahead and get some people on call, do kind of like podcast style. These ones are gonna be really interesting. These ones are very polarizing. So I want to point out, Troll Chant is probably the literal best card we've seen so far. That's my initial impression. Out of all the cards we've seen so far, this is probably the literal best one. And then it's released alongside the literal worst ones. So this is gonna be a fun day.